I take refuge until I am enlightened in the Buddhas, the Dhamma, and the Sangha. Through the positive potential I created by practicing generosity and the other far-reaching attitudes, may I attain Buddhahood in order to benefit all sentient beings. I take refuge until I am enlightened in the Buddhas, the Dhamma, and the Sangha. Through the positive potential I created by practicing generosity and the other far-reaching attitudes, may I attain Buddhahood in order to benefit all sentient beings. I take refuge until I am enlightened in the Buddhas, the Dhamma, and the Sangha. Through the positive potentials I created by practicing generosity and the other far-reaching attitudes, may I attain Buddhahood in order to benefit all sentient beings. So, a few weeks ago, where we left off was page 54. Of the 8 verses, we have gone through 6 verses. They're root verses and then commentary included. We hope the last couple of weeks, because we haven't had Wednesday classes, we hope that's given everyone the opportunity to review, read again, and analyze further the teachings and the explanations. Today, though, we'll continue with verse 7. So we'll collectively read the root verse and the commentary, and then Visham and I will share our thoughts on the topic and what's being explained, and then we'll surrender the mic to our participants for any questions, insight, and discussion topics you may have. Page 54, please read along with us. Verse 7, exchange of self with others. In short, I will offer directly and indirectly every benefit and happiness to all beings, my mothers. I will practice in secret, taking upon myself all their harmful actions and sufferings. The second line refers to offering every benefit to all beings, my mothers. We must remember to offer every benefit and happiness to all of our previous mothers, and not to just a few. We are not talking only about our mothers in this life, but also those from past lives. The text also says, I will practice in secret, taking upon myself all their harmful actions and suffering. We are also asking for help from the gurus, so we will be able to do this. The verse refers to the entire community of sentient beings and all the unsought pain, illness, and suffering they experience. This seventh verse directly refers to the actual practice of Tonglen. During our meditation, we accept from sentient beings all their hurts, pains, evil circumstances, interferences, illnesses, and so on. We visualize removing these hindrances from sentient beings in the form of a charcoal-colored light, and we take them upon ourselves. As it says in the Lama Choba, we are advised to mount all those things on the breath and take them into ourselves, i.e., visualize inhaling them. Whereas when we exhale, we are to visualize sending forth all of our happiness, virtue, prosperity, comfort, great insights, and understandings. We send out all of these and offer them to the entire community of sentient beings without discrimination. In parentheses there is mentioned that for a more detailed explanation of how to engage in Tonglen practice or meditation, please refer to the appendices. And that's something we will do as part of this verse. Gyeltsen made a point to specifically go into this practice of Tonglen in detail at the end. Am I pronouncing that correctly? The appendices, right? In plural, right? Appendices. Okay. Appendix is one that we see. So it's actually on page 150, and we'll turn to that page in a moment. What?
Yes. Nas taptip pei chena tera donang don jubais. Pende mana konambe. Mai ne don don da. Ani sangwe dala lembra shos pei don tereda. Teje de sata ti so rawti karsung university chane dera. Ani azu so do dun shegi yoy nasra. Do dun shegi yoy na. 아주 가도 응어서 젠라 펜토로 로바인다 초토기나라 야메나 아주 주네 치기나라 가리나라 아니 너는 온돈 주바이 펜디만은 거나비스 소소래야 지우요 왔다 아니 젠라 펜바요 왔듯이 sama 아니미 신진 셴라 파 뮤스나 만도 다파 콘솔 파 펜도로야다 데리오야다 마 도스 송고요레스 펜마 콘소라 마이너 돈동다 상에달라는 브로셔스 아니 신진 시행기 강에 다 코란솔이야 강에도 아니 지 쟁나 바체발라 소비 강에 가르치요 있는 데스 상마 아니 가서 소소라 lemba susula yongayagi menam dos digores sikurang jewaina dana tendera uchires.
So we were just going over, Jampa was just going over the root verse in Tibetan from his memory, and the main emphasis here in verse 7, it just says mentioned at the beginning there, exchange of self with others. And so, in other words, or in short, what's being emphasized here in this verse is that we develop the mind of, in the practice of offering all causes, conditions, and factors that are undesired towards others or to others. For example, peace, happiness, benefit, stability, all of those we cultivate the mind and intention of offering to others. And then when it comes to ourselves, what we're hoping to take on and take away from others is their pain and suffering.
Tati nganzu katu tawa ina, ti kandris yungu ina, ti nyanya karichana chegoya samantundu yung sigires. Kain susu dewa tang penpa da tsangwa pa shenla pyusha na, anis ta susu kangen yungu ruwas. Zhengi dongan tsangma susul tsu tanglen che shaba ina, susul dili jang kangen yungu ruwas. Anchesan ti karichana chegi ina, susu nganzu misu ina susu chiu gugu yore, anchesan ti karichana chegi yose atari sambuji yung sigires.
So when we read this verse, our first reaction could be, and in most cases probably would be, is and how we should react when reading this verse is to ask why. Why would we give everything good that we have to others, and then take everything that's bad from them onto ourselves? Would there not be any sense of hesitation in that? Why would we, would there not be an apprehension or a fear even? Why do we give everything that we have, everything good that we know, everything pleasant, everything happy, every kind of happiness or benefit? Why would we give that to others? Would we not be at a loss? Is there? Would we not be losing something? And then, why would we want to take the suffering and pain of others? What is there to be gained in that? So this would be the first question that many of us would ask when reading this verse.
Ti yunggoya rago ti nga sugi shinju chaya nga su dewa saya de kandichi yunggoyo ba, ane sing diji saya chora ti kandichi yunggoyo ba, sing dongan saya de kandichi yunggoyo ba, tila nga su rinpa nipa ti kala shinju chaya kuyo res. Tati shinju chaya tila ya ane jasi chamu shuwa lai kar song yo res sewa ina jiten dongan chi nipa tida randun dole chons, jiten dewa chi nipa tida jenden dole chons chido song yo res. 제자다 공기 가르송 वर्스드스나 마서기 강행 가르치요 바 있는 것을 때 지금 알아야 나랑 지고 차고요 나랑 라야지요 봐 어디 만타비 디 장장상로 땅비 전체네 나랑 수수를 강행 용고요 봐디 나서기 수수스라냐라냐라 신주야 오치 제가 있는 아니 디 세워 종고요레스 엔데네 jen dewa chona sayagi jen ya ane nga soki jen chenzing lo katse lo jangwa di tsechi ranye lo dewa tosu yungu yoba ngoyo nisu chene di chade yo res chesa ta nga soki di hamagu yi chenchi ane nga soki jen kari yeme la name tang chene ane susu dewa yunga le ya shuja chen ane digi ane nyora soki na kanye soki na mamu teni ngu tsu chen nga soki kanye soki yoba di ngatsui hamagoshen and kachikolo chinche so kange yongwe wadila shinjuche ares.
So the answer to this question of why we would give everything that's pleasant and good that we have to others and then take from them onto ourselves all their pain and suffering. The answer to this can be best explored by thinking of the concept of bringing happiness to ourselves, cultivating happiness for ourselves. If we take the time to think deeply and analyze this, what we can slowly be led to, and this concept is explained clearly by the great Shantideva in his work of the Guide to the Bodhisattva Way of Life, where he mentions when it comes to bringing ourselves happiness and cultivating happiness for ourselves, even though that's the intention, we're always focused, we're always almost basically obsessed with how to make ourselves happy, how to bring satisfaction to ourselves, how to bring a gratification to ourselves, how to bring all the best causes and conditions to ourselves. It's almost like an automatic yearning and reaction that we have from the moment we're born. That's all we seek, either consciously or subconsciously. It's all we seek. But irrespective and despite that intention of bringing happiness to ourselves, we actually tend to bring much suffering to ourselves, and this is due to overemphasis and overfocus on this. Oh, I need to make myself happy. What is the best thing that I can do for myself? This overemphasis and overfocus on the self actually brings us suffering. The irony there, despite the intention of wanting to do the best for ourselves and bring ourselves peace and happiness, the way that we go about it, and this overemphasis and this overfocus on that, and this this deep, intense pursuit of happiness actually brings us suffering. And so basically too much focus and too much emphasis on ourselves brings us suffering, even though that is the intention in terms of bringing ourselves happiness. The intention is to bring ourselves happiness, but the way that we go about it through this over-focus and emphasis on ourselves actually brings us suffering. But on the contrary, if we think about others, we release ourselves from that shackle, if you will, of obsession and grasping to one's own well-being and happiness, and you expand upon that. You release yourself from this narrow-minded focus on the self, and you expand upon that, make yourself available and accessible to others, and shift that focus from oneself, from the self, to others. And it's in this process that we bring about the very happiness, benefit, and peace that we crave. So we all want happiness. We all intend to bring ourselves. The intention is to make ourselves happy, to bring satisfaction to our lives. But the way we go about it is the complete opposite, and actually causes us and brings about a lot of pain and misery. And so, kind of 180ing or doing the opposite of what initially seems what would make sense is the way that we need to go about it. So if we want to make ourselves happy, we need to relinquish that focus and emphasis on self and concentrate on others. And in that process, we are able to be on the receiving end of that very happiness that we seek, and that's brought to us in the process of bringing the same kind of peace and happiness to others. What else?
As teacher this and tang juna song yo ba de zo ko jiong konsu gi nyanyong ton to song sha jo chi cha ge yoris chesa ta ti juna song sha jo teng ro su 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 da je che ro be che shen ni ma jing nang lo la ya da je che chen su 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 de ke chang bo yin ba su su za ching bo yi ba yin la na me tang de ri sang lu ti ni ma jing le su su sang lu tang chen ni ma chi gi na ne tru chi gi na da su su ru ba tang su su chi le ar che ro yin na ro ba 냥도 그 소화지 비 가도들 수수 심바데 같이 부스도 차기도스 되네 니마 신질에 수sam단 당아 트리니마데 가리오네 형 케케케메 승에 로바데 지고 총낭에 직견전자 지바 있나 가리 콘스 가리 코란도 와 코란선데 와 가리 총바 있나 디그레스나 가리 있나 디그레스am 제나 상로다 친 상로데 고양무지 수에chen 되네 니마르 그 돈도 수수 초이 줄에 신주 체와이나 아니 수수 랑에 수수 자체부 체하게 상로 부수도 쇼지 바당 아니 지 랑 루바다 제한래야 아니 지 자차다 개차 제하게 상로디 지상기 바 자차 치르치르 로아티 세지 수수 지 상로디 벳 나카나신 고 고양 뭐 차르기 여바도 수수 냥용 돈에 아니 뭐저 도야 차투그레스 지산디 덴디 신주 체하데 망치가 진가라서 수수 녀를 추이 출래야 안티 신주 체chen 아니 칼리칼리 수수 라트 총바이나 아니 파기 종의 송바데 수송은 덴바 임바텔 이체 녀바다 아니 수수 이텔이야 대소 그냥 내 체와이나 수수래 랑신기 좋아 도스 용거레스.
So this concept of bringing about our own happiness through focusing and emphasis and cherishing others are part of the teachings that are presented from experience from the masters. But when it comes to ourselves, what we must do is analyze and examine these teachings in practice every opportunity we get to really see if this is true. For example, if we can cultivate this practice, be mindful, and maybe for the first time in a long time, or maybe for the first time ever, think, okay, today, instead of just thinking about myself and how to take care of my needs and tick off all the boxes that I want for myself, let me think about this for a second. And let me actually think a little bit more deeply about this, because I have this default wiring that goes, okay, from the moment I get up to the moment I go to bed at night, I'm going to do this, and this focus on myself, because this is what I'm trying to do for myself. And there is this end product, this result of gratification, satisfaction, personal happiness that I'm trying to bring about in myself. But if you actually compare and cross-reference, if you will, different moments of your life, you'll see that this wiring or this intention, if it was actually the right way to go about bringing yourself this happiness, it would never cause you suffering. But there have been many moments where we've suffered in our lives, despite this checklist and this intention of bringing ourselves happiness. And so if you use that as a comparison, you'll see that, okay, that you kind of, what you're given is a foundation of questioning, to then think, okay, well, despite this checklist of making myself happy, there have been many moments where I've suffered, and so maybe this is something to think about. This is something to chew on, and how about from identifying those moments when you've suffered despite having this intention of bringing yourself happiness, how about we go about this in a way that's different? How about today, I'm going to completely let go of that. Whatever happens today. Whether it's good, if it's good, great. If something good happens to me, great. If I'm happy today, great. If not, that's okay too. I'm completely not going to obsess and grasp at this happiness for myself anymore. I'm going to completely divert my energy and focus my energy on others, and I'm going to devote my thoughts and my energy towards their well-being and how they are. And I'm going to see what the result of this is. If we experiment, examine through this kind of practice, we'll be able to see a different result, because the causes are different. The cause this time, again, isn't narrow and limited to just oneself. It's now open. The limits and boundaries that were previously just focused within a small radius, if you will, on oneself have now been completely opened. I'm going to use a term here. Basically, the floodgates have been opened to this potential that we have. And now this energy and this focus potential is now directed towards others, and others are limitless. So when we open up our minds and open up our hearts and direct our focus and our energy towards others, this weight of claustrophobic kind of radius and walls that we have surrounding just the self are completely let go of. And because of this letting go and this deep shift of perspective, going from ourselves to others, because of this, the result is then that slowly through practice, this sense of satisfaction and happiness and gratification that we're seeking for ourselves is then truly brought to our experience, into our minds, because of this focus on others. And so if we slowly try, first analyze, examine, and then put into practice this shift of perspective, then we're more than likely to see a result. And once we do see those results, we can then compare them to the moments when we were just focused on ourselves, and we can see kind of the consequences of when we're just focused on ourselves and the benefits of when we're focused on others. And through feeling and experiencing and understanding this result, we'll then be able to cultivate a conviction and generate a sense of conviction in the teachings and the explanations and what's being said. And with that comes a greater belief and a greater joy in the practice.
Rani la tongchung dava dava dang, ane rani ki bobo shongba dende chaya dende ke mares. Yen la dende ki sanglo ki le dang chun chi dang toba ina dele ya susu ki gawa dang bobo chi goya chagyo mares. Den mi nga zo ni mi chi dang ba chi khande chi ba ina ngama do saya me susu tsa chenpo che dewa de chun da che. Susu ki yen la ya pensin da yen la ya chi karasu da chi pa ruba che ya da kari ina yen la pa le dang 춘춘에 저 당토바 있나 텔미비 아왕 소소게 또디 자참부치 임바당 안에 소소 고양부 임바 안에 텔레야 소소 보보지야 당 데서 계cham부레스 소소소 짐 도제 안티체와이나 고 녀르 수이 출레야 란산도 용야지 말에데 이네 준진 스린스 침바인 안에 소소 응네 장네 소소 메츠디 지우지 임바도 소소 응진 토바 데데 텐텐 준준된 바도스 수수 선로나로 제바인 아니 바찬치를 아니 지금 수수수수의 다제체는 냐마 나왕가 시근 하려야랑 지 선보부스도 가져요네 안 다당아랑 선로디 가르칸상디 바지 고양보던 자 전부 차야 안 텐데지 채워이나 아니지 미모고 냠도 좋아던 지 가르치어이네 안 수수수를 뽑아내야 수수상무디 됐 자천부 요와 수수수 뽑아내야 근데 그저 상마 수수수기 니를 수위를 로장치야 됐게 전부를 했어.
Another important point to keep in mind when talking about this kind of practice is that even though when we say when we talk about shifting our focus and thinking about others rather than ourselves, this is not to be perceived or meant to be perceived or understood as a self-sacrifice or a martyrdom. And this is something that Geshe and I have shared many times throughout the last several weeks, because it can be quite easy to fall into the trap of thinking, oh, well, this cherishing others and giving everything good that I have to others and then taking upon myself all the negativities of others, this is basically like a martyrdom. This is basically like, I don't know, like a kamikaze, and that's not what's meant, and that's not how the teachings are meant, the explanations are meant to be understood. What we must maintain is a sense of self-care within this process. When we say all sentient beings, that includes us. We're not separate from sentient beings. So what we have to have as a foundation for this practice is a self-trust, a self-belief, and a sense of self-care. Knowing that in this practice of shifting our focus onto others, not only does it bring others benefit and happiness, but it also fulfills our needs for this very same peace, happiness, and benefit. So if we can start slow, we're not meant to jump into the deep end right away. Any small thought, seemingly small thought or action is meant to be rejoiced in. The action that we dedicate towards others or direct towards others is meant to be rejoiced in. Positive thought or positive action that we direct towards others is meant to be acknowledged in ourselves, is meant to be recognized, and is meant to be cherished and rejoiced in. So if we start small, even if we can't do that much on the day-to-day for others, for example, the one or two things that we do, they're meant to be acknowledged in ourselves and then rejoiced in. And then slowly, with time, we can gradually build and increase that focus and these positive thoughts and actions that we're able to dedicate to others and reserve for others. And over a certain period of time, doing this practice consistently, you'll see that build. You'll see that capacity build. You'll see an increase in the ability to focus on others, to direct positive thoughts and actions towards others. And then after some time, for example, several months of doing this kind of practice to the best of your ability, you'll be able to compare and see that, wow, compared to 6 months ago, I feel different. My thinking's different, and I've truly benefited from this shift of perspective and this practice. And so that's something we should keep in mind, knowing that even the small steps are to be acknowledged, to be rejoiced in, to be cherished, and as we go, we can increase our capacity in this practice. But remembering that the foundation must be self-trust, self-care, self-belief, self-confidence, self-esteem must be maintained. This is not a martyrdom. of any sort. This isn't a self-sacrifice of any sort. This is with the intention of all sentient beings, including oneself, in mind.
Teje de nganzu jeng sane chu rewa khaya me bito nganzu jeng pheng samlo de nganzu jule khatse che man ruwa ina nganzu la pobo che ya singkho yang bu cha ya ti che ba yores be nganzu tamni ra chen bu cha ya ju ba ma bu cha ya thoko sa chen bu cha wa ina ti khar che go res de san ngaji che go yores ngaji che simbo bo stor tang khran ni go ji bu yo so ro yor de ina ti ngaji che 아니 심바즈도 보스토르 땅데니 젠라 최소치야도 참아강에도 참아도 용거래서 서로와 맞수기 델레도데 아니 젠팽 삼부디 젠라야 초리와 춘메비 돈 젠팽 삼부디 소수 줄레 카세 많은 로아 데이세징어도 지는 삼부 고양 니는 아주 뽑아지야 아니 젠라 최소라서 보다서 참아만 용의 돈 아니 심바지고 차고요데 뭐세도 차고요레스 디
So the more we are able to develop this mind of cherishing others, offering the best that we have to others, caring for others, without expectation, without hoping or expecting anything in return, the more free and expansive our minds become, the less we grasp at a return for ourselves. And because we're not bound by this limit of, oh, I'll only do this much for others if I receive the same amount in return, without being bound by this limit of this expectation or this wish, our potential and capacity is then increased and expanded. And so this in itself is one of the benefits of this practice when thinking and focusing on others rather than ourselves. Often we are trying ourselves the best benefit, with the focus being on just ourselves. Temporarily and momentarily things can seem great and actually very beneficial. Let's say, for example, if fame and fortune are what I'm hoping for as a means of bringing myself happiness and benefit. Yes, fame and fortune, for a certain amount of time or for the time being, can feel like very fulfilling things to attain or things to achieve. But after a while, there comes a whole load of painful baggage that comes with that. Jealousy, worry, anxiety, wondering how to maintain, going through all different ways of keeping the fame and fortune going. All the time and energy spent trying to keep it going for as long as possible, to maintain it, to make sure you don't lose it, the worry that comes from the possibility of losing it, so on and so forth. So it comes with all this, even though it looks nice on the surface and temporarily, behind the scenes, other causes and conditions come into play down the road that then, rather than helping us experience and maintain this sense of fulfillment, we're then dragged into a lot of pain and turmoil that we didn't expect or that we didn't want. However, when it comes to benefiting others, and again, completely shifting that focus, or the perspective in a completely different way than what we're used to, with this focus being on others, and without expectation of receiving anything in return, there's no pitfall, if you will, or no baggage, painful baggage that we experience along the way, or down the line. The potential that we create to experience, to bring about happiness in others, and then also experience happiness in ourselves, expands and becomes greater and greater, and we don't experience any consequence, a painful or unwanted consequence from this switch in focus or perspective.
Staying the sun, the Shudia the Sama, Chu Kelemba Damalemba Sama Gitiji, Kato near Tsui Chulea, Yan Cheshin, the Ratuaji, Shirius, and the Chu killing as a non Chushiyagi, the Rodanchi Cheva Inani, and the Konaya Karsur, Lela with Chagoris, till some time the Chichan, which is in Nombani Tawa, the Riton Jechene, and some of the Mawayores and Tetsujima, and the Tonangi, Mojimando Dizan and the Luchine, Runa, Ra, Chintanda, the Saman of Mawachira, and totally Darwanas.
So, this type of practice, again, this shift of focus rather than being on ourselves towards others, this type of thinking, this type of practice, the benefits of this thinking and practice can be felt on the day-to-day, whether or not one is spiritual or religious. This is a practice and type of thing that's worth investing and worth experimenting with and analyzing, even from the secular point of view, because benefits are available in many shapes and forms, whether or not we're talking about it from a Buddhist practitioner point of view or not. However, when it comes to the point of view of Buddhist practice, the benefits that come from emphasis on others in the through the practice of bodhichitta, through the practice of expanding our minds in compassion, loving kindness. The benefits are very deeply explained and emphasized in many different ways. And so we won't, for the sake of this session, we won't go into each and every one of those in detail. But basically what we wanted to share was that from a Buddhist practitioner point of view, surely and definitely the benefits are experienced. The benefits in when cherishing others and offering and bringing about peace and happiness to others, the benefits that we experience in ourselves are increased and are very impactful and very deep. But even outside of the realm of Buddhist practice, on the day-to-day, if we can slowly bring about this thinking and practice in our day-to-day lives, the opportunity to bring about a more peaceful, flexible, expanded, increased capacity in ourselves when thinking of others is there to be had. So the benefits are universal when it comes to this thinking and practice, and we wanted to offer everyone the opportunity to think about this and challenge ourselves to really experiment to see whether this is true, this kind of practice is valid. The benefits that are to be had within the Buddhist practice point of view when it comes to mind training and bodhicitta, we're hoping to share with you as we go through in the appendices earlier the explanation of the Tonglen practice. We're getting slowly into the session, and so we're going to keep that explanation and going through, even though we had initially planned to go through at least some of the Tonglen explanation today. We'll keep that for next week. But the benefits to be had when focusing on others and cherishing others rather than ourselves, from the Buddhist point of view, will be shared as we go through the Thonglen session next week. And so for today, our thoughts, sharing our thoughts, we'll stop here. Yushamana will stop here in terms of sharing our own explanation and our thoughts on the verse and the commentary of verse 7.
제가 너무 삼로나로래 삼로나로래 아니 칼리칼리 라타르치 데 춘윤지로 춘윤지는 곳에 베케션 브레스 너무는 참부진 곳에 벳코나 아니 딜이야 조알라바다 데마제 춘윤지는 곳에 딜 조아제 양 춘윤지 곳으로 아니 칼리칼리체 심드 남라메와 딜레지 냠넨세야데 카르 가드이는 심 레보지 고야 계셔모 차비어스 제우지당 아니 춘윤지 제토바이나 딜레야 조아제는 가와제는 랑랑 조아스다 아니 칼리칼리 체는 아니 가지 마 제토바인 딜라랑 신기 조아 단지고 차와야지 용어랬어.
So we'll stop here for today, and we'll pass the mic to our participants for any questions or experiences and insight you have into either today's verse or any previous verses. But before we do that, we'd like to again emphasize the importance of starting small and starting slow. The application of this practice is very practical. This isn't meant to be some kind of fantastical challenge. The benefits and the emphasis on this practice and the explanations on them are meant to be very experiential and accessible in experience, accessible in practice, and practical in approach. So when it comes to engaging in a new practice, it's very important that we start small, start slow, and cultivate joy. And again, through acknowledging, through recognizing, and through rejoicing in what we were able to do successfully, or even attempt to do in terms of practice. And it's through this process that we slowly build our strength of practice and how we increase the inspiration towards the practice through joy. It's very important to have that as one of the pillars of our practice, to maintain that joy, to find that joy. This isn't meant to, this kind of practice, or any practice for that matter, isn't meant to be perceived as some kind of grand challenge, kind of, dragging a 2,000-pound anvil across the sand. It's not some kind of challenge like that. This is actually very practical, very applicable, and we have to start slow and recognize where we are and rejoice in what we can do, and then strive to build upon that. We should never jump too far into a certain thinking or practice if we're not ready. We should know what our limits are, and do our best to avoid being overwhelmed, and then eventually losing hope and joy, and becoming very discouraged, and ultimately just forgetting all of it. That's the risk. These are risks that we may face if we take on too much when we're not ready. So, irrespective of how things are explicitly presented in the text at certain points, context is really important, and knowing how to apply a particular concept of practice and teaching according to one's disposition and one's capacity. So we wanted to share that again as a means of providing you a sense of hope and inspiration and joy in engaging in the practice rather than a pressure or a fear or an apprehension. On this.
좋아요.
On this. So, if our in-person participants have anything they would like to share or have any questions, I'm going to go ahead and bring the mic over so that you can pass it between yourselves. In the meantime, there is a question online. Actually, rather a comment. Give me a second. It says, during the time of the Rodney King riots, I was in LA. And became very well known in a positive way in the company I worked for. I can only describe it as a disturbing rush. During the time I was in, it became very well. So, I believe what's being emphasized is, despite the chaos that was ensuing at the time, the pain and suffering that was ensuing in the community at the time, because of the positive, or because of the emphasis on the individuals around, the participant who's sharing this, because of that greater concern for the well-being of others, they were known as a member of their company, or they were seen as a member of the company in a very positive way. I believe that's what's being shared. Ani Koran di sorana la le de sarwa. Yes. Ani de negala pejita chik ye mele ya shikalo. Chik samsu shaya dan chik. Chik kapju che o tendu de ne Koran ye gi leje nauna ne Koran de su ya wo shu. 통고 알았어. 그렇죠? 알았어. 내가 이제 소조 Koran de 내가 생자의 길 아니. 소조 주부만 대하자니 이해도 하지. 주도 전으로다. 신성로 땅으로 젠편. 어딘지 돌아. 또 가지 팬들이 둘 수 없는 인사를. 맞어. 근데 중수 인사를. 맞어. I stayed in the airport to let staff go home and ran the business class lounge. Being famous for a while was very disturbing. 알레. 얘한테 그런 데 통을 잡으러 보다. 나스. 그런 야부시 원래 되는 거지. 자기로 봐. 나스. 그런 들을 단체로 들을 단체 볼 때는 그런 때스 자기가 샤사. 나스. 아니 어디 보기 미참어 짜데 비거나 남단 인사로 봐. 아하. 내가. 아하. 아니 소 셰네 남단 대고 말사 그런데 르탄다. 아하. 남단 대비스. 알았어. 아니 어딜 땐지 이렇게 콜로고도 다 야구도 다 콜 야구다 밀려 야구 치도 세우를 시켜주더니 시지로 떨어져도 땅 이지로 와. 아하. 그래서 어디 총사. 아, 맞어. 도시에서. Thank you for sharing that. Yes. Yeah. Yes. Gray, would you mind? Passing the mic to Eric. Thank you. It's at the bottom, I think.
So this is a little tangential to this, but there's a line there that says, "Every benefit and happiness to all beings, my mothers."
Mm-hmm.
And I've come across this a lot in Tibetan Buddhism, to think of everybody as your mother, like all beings at some point have been your mother and your father. One of the things is challenging is when I'm sitting down here and I read it, it sounds really good. Yeah. And then, when I'm every day I do a little practice and I read that and I feel, and then I go out into the world and I totally forget. And, so is there any advice on how to keep that thought with me more? Maybe just because of my karma and my imprint and everything else, it's just like I get back into the transactional mode kind of with everybody. So thank you.
늘 dus konde de kontu dus ine chulu pattern de kale khawdu se
samite gynden chik 마시마시 모투니 지 컴퓨터에 들어줘야 삼부탄 토요일 아니 탑라우시 계속은 US
나스 티두스레 나츠지던 로로 공시야 오태주고 거라 로로 공시야 오태주 먼저 장주지 생고야 된가서 도스천 조대진 고야 시고 말아 고 카드이나 주저니시 사시기 지나는 또 카드이마 있는 거서 로라 지 양생한테 도스 텐토야기 되려라 배는 아주 단단히나 전도 라면은 주저외 되더라 주저 시시나노다 텐스체니 고 장주시 생르공고도 그래서 뒤공샤도 전에 당아서 레탕보치도 인바이나 그 요조 제도여라 다고 칼리칼리 제로데요 공치나 엔지마 춘제 말와 지 신경 가르스 통바이나 다가라로라 질함 샤토에 준 거라 그래서 뒤뒤 아주 총바이나네 대 나다한테 슈뇽에들이만 단돌라면은 주도 스킬렌체 아니 주저시시나노라 도스체 다 대면와지 단다 장주시 생치 오로지 파마공야라고 진바이나네 한테로 소소소 신나도 저치서로와 저치서 아니 지니마지 나노라 주저송나로 있는다 시나라 나이나 투이나라 간데지 저치서서 저로지 엔테나로 장주시 생세야 되가 상도 지땅 까마가 조카서 소소 땅도도 지땅으로 한테 지땅 아니 로로 공시 태줘야 돼. 그래서 치료도 배로들 미드를 투로 메칸르치 투 티잉에 파마체뇨 여행지를 아상 스마보스도 오면 하시러 고양모지던 아니 다나던 리치 통바이나 티잉에 아마체뇨 여러 와서 하브르도 가서 신체 지수로 가들 용도 가서 데모도 다되잖아. 다도 세든들이 되는 신체 주부들 세바단들 통도 가서 가르치기도 항상 듣행도 거기 따던 생에도 빼두자치 통해서 들러롱랑도 그래서 들이 통에 가도도 다 코단다 세딜라 코란들이네 생하마로 코란 라와라서 체치는 생수 그 세뇨여와 그래서 들이 요래 아니게 콜로 콘도 사르모로마치레 지들 니지 제고요를 대 샤바들 가서 콘도 사고라 그래서 대양모로마치레 대양에 파마체뇨 요래 삼해줘라 다티 소로디 뭐서 디고야디 수수지 내친 뜻을 때는 공야 많이 받지 간 통바이나 안티 카도 통비 카도들 무슨 심내야 공시 때한테 뺏게 참 자고요 때 자는지 뭐한 가리가리 공부를 하다 나서 공부 많아
so this frequency that we're able to direct our minds this ability to continuously maintain this type of thinking as a beginner is probably best practiced by reminders, setting reminders for ourselves. This is, that's something we can do with these devices, I mean, we set timers. There's a list of there's literally an app, like a notes and a reminders app or whatever on this. So that's something we can do. Within certain Buddhist practices, there are recitations that we are meant to do as a part of a commitment, certain parts of the day. And this acts as a reminder because we're not yet familiar enough in our minds with this practice. We have to find a way to remind ourselves to think this way and slowly gain a habituation of the fundamentals and the concept and the thinking through frequent habituation. So if we set ourselves a day, let's say, start slowly, maybe a few minutes in the morning and a few minutes before bed, and then increase that, and maybe eventually every couple of hours, and then hopefully to anyone that we see. And when it comes to anyone that we see or anything that we see, any kind of sentient being that we see, maybe start with the ones that are pleasant to us. Let's say our family and friends, or ones that aren't directly our parents in this life, but let's say the ones individuals that we feel are close to us, that we know, and then expand upon that to strangers, and then hopefully to those that are even causing us pain and suffering. Somebody used the example of once we're able to pause and examine, when we're able to conjure up this practice and thinking to a point where instead of reacting immediately, we're able to pause. It helps us differentiate, or it helps us actually refrain from differentiating between different types of individuals or beings. Geshe brought up the example of, let's say like National Geographic, we see there's a scene where, let's say, a predator is taking down prey, and the initial reaction is, oh my gosh, how terrible, what a terrible lion or tiger, what a bad animal, how dare they kill such an innocent deer, or whatever the prey was. And that can be the initial reaction, but another way that we can think about it is, and through practice, is well, I must feel compassion. We must cultivate compassion also for the predator, because now he's causing his own, they're causing their own karma to experience being the prey in another life. And maybe it was actually because they were the prey in a different life that now they're acting as a predator. So seeing kind of that greater process of cause and result, we can refrain from differentiating between good beings versus bad beings, or good individuals versus bad individuals, and then we can cultivate this compassion in all beings and with all individuals that we meet, or in this case, seeing them as your mother. So yes, so start small again, setting a time, let's say every day, small reminder every day, basically as an exercise. Kind of like, for example, we can use a very similar format to meditation. If that's something we're familiar with, let's say we set aside 10 minutes every morning before work or before breakfast. We can do the same and set that same kind of time structure for this practice of seeing others as their mothers, and then slowly increase the reminders throughout the day, and then build upon that in that way. And it's through this consistency that we are able to cultivate a true habituation and familiarization with the concept and the thinking and the practice. And then eventually you'll get to where we're striving. We'll get to where we're striving in terms of seeing others, being able to see others as our mothers as soon as we see them, and interact with them. So, yes. It's interesting. Now we have all these devices and things, but the concept of reminders, let's say, I just even in this technique of within this practice of having to needing to recite the lines every 4 hours or 6 hours or a day and night. This is something that goes back since the beginning of when we had the intellectual capacity to do this for ourselves. Obviously, it looks different now. Now it looks like it's on this cube, this square thing with a button, and you kind of press it. But the concept of just reminding ourselves and setting timers, and, it's all within our capacity and our ability. So hopefully, we can do that on the day-to-day, and that'll definitely help us become better with the practice. Yes.
텐데리 디 지당아서 공시 테스트에 와이나 아저기 카투다나 펜투 디여바던데 초모토 와이나 배는 미지냐도 아저 참참 데데 레하치아바다 레하치당 토는 참참 몸하고에 두고요. 미게 시당 차는 시와이나라 가링 아저 콘도사비 카투다 아저 콘도사비 카투들 제약하고다 아저 공시 슈체모메데 아니 콘도사 카도 테마도 와이나 콘도산 까마가시 제리야 아저 게시 텐데기 로종은 야nen지 메나 가르치기란 다코가다 텐데 랍송스 데디 디가나 아저 퇴베 잡네데 남도게 퇴베선데 팔랭 가르로 마무치 수에는 아저 마지고 가나 마지고 마스 그러 이네 텐데냐는 소소글로라 공시테스 요와이나 오데케요 마레스 코나 소소기 지원하마다 아마체뇨 요레사메야로부터 한 소소오다 거기다 나간 시도 라바나시 징행에마 코나 라이지르다 사메야데 삼바인 소소 콘드디 마시 소소 이치오차 아니 코나다 팔렌로 뭐 온용르데 메와 차기 도와스 띵어 소기디 나랑 소기 레담보 소이네 디 냐뇽 톤 나노소 펜크벤 가져요 같은 수 통토고 도와스 그래서 다 딘리 중요지는 거 소야레스 디펜토요레스
So again, one of the things that might bring us a greater, stronger sense of incentive to remind ourselves and to set timers so that and reminders so that we're more familiar with the practices is the acknowledgement, the recognition, and the joy we find when we're able to actually succeed in a small portion of the practice, or at least attempt the practice. This, patting ourselves on the back is actually a good thing, because, for example, let's say, as opposed to before we knew about this concept of seeing others as our mothers, if someone were to irritate us or cause us agitation or annoy us or frustrate us or anger us due to a certain way of speaking, a certain way of acting, we would react by criticizing them, and then trying to validate why we're angry at them, and in this process we would actually prolong the suffering ourselves in this process of explaining and giving reasons as to why we should be angry with them. The more we try to validate that as a sense of bringing ourselves a supposed peace and happiness, and we actually we prolong the pain because we're still thinking about it, we're still grasping on it. We're not letting it go. We're giving ourselves a reason as to why we angry, as why we're angry, and then we continue with those reasons. So and so, he or she did this. He or she did this because they're lacking this. They're lacking this because so and so, and we give ourselves so many reasons to basically prolong our own pain and suffering. It doesn't seem that way. It doesn't feel that way, but essentially that's what it's doing. But whereas, let's say, we're able to, even if we're not able to do it continuously or consistently enough, but let's say in the moment that we are as beginners, when we first apply this practice to a moment when someone is annoying or frustrating us, we're able to think, oh well, it's you can't really blame them. They're probably it's because they're because they're lacking a certain understanding of the situation, their perception of the reality of the situation isn't what it actually isn't the actual reality of what's happening, and they're under the influence of a certain emotion, a certain perception, and because of this, they're reacting in this way. I can't blame them for that. They're separate from their interpretations of reality. They're separate from the perceptions. They're separate from their emotions, and I will not hold that against them. And when you do that, you stop the reaction. You stop the chain reaction, and it ends. There's no prolonging process. There's no dwelling. There's no obsessing with what just took place between yourself and the individual. You've let it go. You're no longer prolonging it. You've let it go. And when you let it go, because you're not focusing on this disturbance or the disturbed emotion that it brought up in you, you're naturally happier. You're naturally more at peace yourself. And not only so in this process of being more at peace and open with yourself, it also makes the other person feel better, because now you're no longer prolonging this agitation or anger towards them, and so it's basically you've managed the conflict and took the peaceful route and let it go, and just sheerly because you're no longer prolonging the pain, you're now open. You now have that energy back, you have that potential back. You can do whatever you want with that potential, rather than focusing it all on something negative or a negative reaction or emotion. And then in that you maintain and retain and retake, if you will, your own energy, preserve your own energy, preserve your own peace of mind, and then in doing so, you help maintain and preserve the other individual's peace of mind as well. So yes, I mean, the benefits are there to be seen. Again, even in a single instance, even if we can't do this continually yet, even if we're not good at it yet, but even in a single instance, we can see this, and again, even from a secular point of view or perspective, the benefits can be experienced. This isn't sheerly from the lens of Buddhist practice only. This is something practical that can be applied to everyday life, in terms of a different way of reacting and a different way of thinking. So we're just keeping our eye on the clock. We usually stop at 9. We don't want to keep things too late for our participants. There's still a few minutes if there's anything anyone would like to share or ask. Hopefully that sounds better there. Geshe Woser. Sums up my. But yeah, there's no particular question or comment online. So if we have any in person, we do have a few minutes left if there's anything anyone would like to share. Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
Hot mic. I think on the self-care and the martyrdom that you were talking about, I can sometimes tend to take on too much and too many other people's pain and try to do too much, and that gets overwhelming, and maybe I'm not the best to any of those people if I get too overwhelmed. So I'm wondering if there's anything in the verse or the teachings or the commentary that speaks to that, how to remain your best self while you're trying to take on other people's suffering.
shenbe kaji shen samla tamar shenbe chugur sta samla rani solo tamar somlar andine mares ro ranji ran tubur se ranji man pe chun ranji ran ya ba tongjong nangjong tang andine mares kaji fol pagi jeshi somar ba
ne
di tanda yan jeshi nembil ki soen tues koran ro shashamina
nas
ni samsam di khasur di shongu du sarwa
nas
ni kora anchi choze ro musa laga nisman me ban ko laga shima se se uzu jang che ani shen da shen ko le jo jegi jirwa anje ya choye de laga jing nisman ma cho laga chu sia ko ani de kanjong de tang chi ida de she
nas
de sozu di tang de she de samani ko laga dress ke yomar was
unseller
ani de chasa pa nyu ki du sarwa
oh
laga dress sama pe ga du du san choye jingman ma cho nen ju yuan shi de merwa
unseller
아니 그저 어디 안에 신 된다 주에 잡들래 신 된다 주마도 아니 라니 칼레 카 이다시 아니 어디지 섬섬들이 용도 쓰라
nas
아니 가지 수수 척제 디 다다 예 디 마게 하시다 라니 쪼아디 냐 퇴시다 아니 디 쪼아디 냐기 비시샤 토네 아니 신 된다 주에 이 토네 아니 제시 this 님베 다기 수원시 대시 the number swing US.
oh nas ti datus susugi dusuche ani susu nubache an tesulya kaza ti gushado chagura chegodo susunganzo sinkamjero ani tesulya chagura che ta ku gongshi dango 거랑 안저 젠팽 상고도 gongshi dangi dangi ji 그러잖아 로바체 이나라 가는 gongshi dango 거로 그래서 다 들려야 칼리 체네 젠팽 로고에 관계를 수수기 신칸들 동인 체나마도야 차는 가지고 참아키래 아니 내가 등은에 루드잖아 되는 꼬라마고 한 꼬라마고 되던 수수 신칸데 강에 되기도 대치된 가서 이내 다른 데를 참상 저 꼬라마고 내가 마고 싶지 뻔 그 참상에 지금 다 파주도 체는 말이 수주도 체는 말이 되는 부스도 차원에 되는 연구도 쓰러 전전에 연구자는 그 펜추슈로 어디 가르라는 고샤자에 되게 참으르셨어. 소소기 담원이는 다제 체로 소소기 조수에 참은 되쇠체 아니 소소 신감제 그래서 참만이야 고샤자 근데 참만스로 조보 니마지기를 하러 차샤바 니마지나로 소소 최고에 대해서 그냥 참만스에 되게 참으르셨어. 아니 동바 바산들 시야 안티노 레하들 시야 그 참만에 다제 체는 zamsöde keçimurishas te konsumba nashin ngaraine ti samsantri yodo smi chichero ni chero la se samakile an chedi san tsoge majo sangoge majo an posto chaade yodo ste tel donen ro ti ngaraine zoro ti de söda de sama chagoya wo chero an susugi de sama joba de joba an majo de sama zanja yas kasesu ro ting에 다 드린도 용고 매와이나 인산이 나니 책이나라 어디서 카세오스야 되게 점으로셨어 안티도 됐어 고향 모양도 되게 제보도 저한테 지전 편지했어
So one thing that we can do is approach things from or be as practical as we can in our approach to accepting responsibility and taking on certain work and activities and certain jobs according to our capacity. If we maybe exercise, recognizing our capacity, our limits, and then dividing according to that limit, dividing and identifying what we're able to do versus what we're not able to do. Clear identification of that, and then within the things that we're able to do, divide them up into different. Let's say if we're talking about activities during the day, divide them up into different times of the day, different days of the week per se, instead of taking them all on at once. And many of us, and Geshe was sharing from his own experience that sometimes a lot of us have this willingness take things on, to take a lot more on than we actually are able to, and just out of that sheer willingness and this desire to help others, to benefit others, to do things for others, we take them on. But a lot of the time, the willingness and the actual capacity, they don't align, and because of that, we tend to suffer and to burn out, and then end up frustrated and suffer. So identifying what we're actually able to do versus what we're not, clear identification of that, and then within what we're able to do, divide that up to different times according to our energy, our capacity, and our ability, and our availability during those moments or those days or those weeks or that time frame. And then another one, and in addition to that approach, is to again, part of the identifying is to, after having identified our capacity, to then honor that, honor those boundaries, if you will, and rather than going beyond them and overwhelming ourselves. And then again, even though there's that willingness, sometimes maybe it's good to analyze and kind of double check that willingness. Is that just kind of wishful thinking, or is it actually really practical and real that I have this ability to follow through with the willingness? Because it's one thing to have a desire, but another thing to have the ability and the capacity to fulfill that need. And so to double check, to reconfirm, to honor those boundaries, to honor those limits, and then within one's limits, identify what one can do and one isn't able to, and then within the realm of things that one is able to do, divide that up into different ways and different times, according to one's energy and availability. Yes. Yes. Yeah, thank you. That was a great way to end today's session. We'll now dedicate our positive imprints and merit accumulated in this collective session today by reciting the dedication together. And the dedication is at the very beginning of the book, right after the copyright page. Please recite along with us. To His Holiness the 14th Dalai Lama of Tibet, and all the holy masters of the Buddha Dharma, may they have long and healthy lives. To the teachings of the Buddha, may they endure for a very long time. To the members of the Sangha community, may they abide in pure morality, be free of any schism, and succeed in their studies and contemplations. To all beings, may they be free from suffering, and may they attain great enlightenment. To all the nations of the world, may they be free from illness, famine, war, and conflicts. May lasting peace prevail and endure forever. Thank you, and I hope to see you next week.
Thank you.